Hey folks, I'm just fresh back from the Learning in the Brain conference teaching Generation AIZ. And while I was giving my keynote address, I made kind of a very provocative statement that got the attention of a lot of people. I said AI companion apps are evil. And I also want to talk today in this episode about the biggest issue people are facing with the new framework. Hey, welcome to the Reach Every Student podcast with me, your host, John Bergman. Hey, the provocative statement I said about AI companion apps were evil came because I was listening to the opening keynote, Dr. Eagleman, I'll call him out, and he said something to the effect, he thought that AI companion apps, these are like AI boyfriend and girlfriend apps, he thought they might be good sandboxes for kids to learn about relationships, and he's dead wrong. And I said that no, they're going to cause human suffering in the students that I work with, and I think for all students, and anybody who's involved in this industry is evil. I'll say it, I believe that this is such an important issue, is that we need to preserve humanity and human connections. We were designed for human connection, and human connection is how we are designed. And when we break that sort of ontological paradigm, then we are only going to cause human suffering, and that to me is like a no-brainer. And so though I believe there is a good use of AI, I used AI even in thinking through a lot of the things I do about this new framework we're talking about, there is also the potential for great harm with AI. And that's really the balance I'm trying to make as I do presentations. AI is causing a cognition crisis, and it can cause huge problems for humans, but when used right, it can really advance us. And so we've got this balance, and it's this fine line that we have to address. Now today, though, I want to revisit episode 59, because at the conference, a lot of people were asking more about this, and I've been doing more thinking about this because they asked me. Yeah, this has been really cool. So it's about the Mastery Flip framework. And the Mastery Flip framework, remember, there are 3 parts. If you don't know, you're just being introduced to it. It starts with AI engine. So in a flipped classroom model, the students are going to say, watch a cheesy video of me, but the AI can help them with that. And there's some tools I talked about in the keynote. Listen to the keynote, episode 60, and you can hear kind of my vision of what the tech stuff needs to do. Then we move to analog roots. So in the room you can see behind me, my students will sit and they will work on assignments like on paper, literally on paper. And then once they've done that, step 3 is the Mastery Viva. This is the human check. So I will walk around the room in just minutes, right? My students will be arriving. I will then be helping them, and I will have time to visit with them. And the big questions that people are asking me is, how do I make that work? And I talked more about that in episode 59, but I want to dive deeper into that because that seems to be like the logistical, how do I make it work day to day? And how do I improve it? And hear me carefully. This is an iterative process for me. I am continuing to make adjustments, and some of it's because of, honestly, I've been asking AI to help me think this through, and it's got some good ideas. So it's kind of weird that I'm talking about human checks, but I'm actually using AI to help me make better human connections with my students. But I think that's the power of the AI, is that it helps me to sort of sometimes think outside the box. And so that's where we want to dive deeper, and let's talk about, here's the big issues people are facing. How do I do this with all my students? So here's a couple issues I'm running into. Issue number 1 is the students come to class and I want to do their analog roots. That means that they're working on some assignments. So, here is my papers, boom, yeah. And the kids are actually going to write on pieces of paper answers to questions. And they're going to do this. This is my I've done it ahead myself. And they all kind of finish at about the same time. And now I have to do these human checks, and now the time of the class is diminishing, and I don't have time to have these little micro conversations with students. And so one strategy is clumping. And so yesterday I had 3 students who finished roughly at about the same time with the analog roots, and I pulled them together, and then we had a conversation not with 1-on-1, but 1-on-3. So whatever. And so I said, Susie, I'm not making up names, you tell me your answer to this question, and then let's have a conversation about it. And so we're now having a conversation with 4 people. So this clumping strategy really seems to help the logistics of it. And then remember what I do, I think I mentioned this last time, is that I will actually then, I take my red marker. I don't know where my red marker is. Oh, it's purple today. I'll take my purple marker and I put my little John Bergman, my little JB symbol on there. It's like a badge of like, I got this done. And then that's what I check. And by the way, that's how I don't take the papers home to grade, because if I see my mark, I've had that human connection with them. Now, a new thing that I want to do, it's a new old thing, I guess I should say, is I started this yesterday. I thought, why have I not done this? So remember, it's a flipped classroom model. So at the beginning of the class, they come to class, they've watched a video the night before, and then I'm actually using some AI for it to ask them questions. I walk around and then sign these papers. But I thought, again, yesterday, let me switch this up. And so what I did that was super powerful is as they are starting their analog work, I'm going to walk around the room, again with my marker, and I'm going to ask them to ask me a question about what they learned from the video individually. And then I get their signature. So what I was using this sort of AI tool where they could ask a question and have this feedback back and forth. And that was good, and I still may do some of that, but I find so much value in me having this brief conversation with them to get them started. So what I'm thinking about now is to go back even more analog and less AI, if you will, and I want my students to, if you will, sign the dude jobber, or I want them to have a brief conversation about their notes, and I'm going to sign that. And then one thing, by the way, I know very quickly if they watched it or they copied their friend's notes, logistic pro tip, and it's like, okay, you need to do this yourself. So that was a conversation with one student. So I'm walking around the room while they're starting their analog roots, their like paper assignment where they're interacting with, yesterday was oceans, and what do you find on the ocean floor? That was the topic in my geology class. And that's been super powerful. And then what I have them do is they answer like a series of questions. Like here's the 9.2 questions right here, boom. You can see the 9.2 questions. They answer the questions. Then when I walk around and I say, explain number 3 to me. And I've been a little bit dissatisfied with that. And the reason I've been a little bit dissatisfied with that is because they just sort of read the answer back. And what they may have done is copy the answer down from their textbook, which that's, they've got some learning by that, right? But they don't have a deep understanding. And so what I'm thinking about doing is upping the ante and asking them deeper questions. And so I was on Gemini yesterday. I said, can you, in Unit 9, which is starting in a couple of weeks or whatever, I said, give me some deeper questions related to this packet. So I uploaded this whole packet, and dadgum if it didn't just make some really awesome questions. They're not all perfect, but they are really in the right direction. So it's like, how could I take this to the next level? Because I showed a video in the keynote. Watch this, episode 60. You're free to watch it, right? Yeah. And I have 2 students who are addressing the same topic. It was the same day I recorded them, had their permission, whatever. And what I did is one student really struggled with the basic concept. And so we're recording, I'm having my Mastery Viva with her, and she was struggling with the concept, and she just missed a vocabulary word. And a vocabulary word was, once she got the vocabulary word and the meaning of the vocabulary word, then all of a sudden everything clicked and she was able to get there. And so I was leading her through that process. But then I was with Dimitri, another student, and Dimitri, boom, it was the same question, by the way. He got the question right away, and then I said, okay, let's go. And I said, let's take this deeper. Let's ask an extension question. And if you watch the video, you can see his face light up when it's like, he got the extension question, and he's very proud of himself. And by the way, I believe, this is just old man teacher advice, you want to increase students' self-worth and self-view of themselves, and they feel like they don't matter. Give them something hard to do, have them succeed, and then all of a sudden they start to feel, self-esteem, all that stuff happens. And so, that is such an important thing, is that we have to give kids something hard to do, give them that productive struggle that I often talk about. And when you give them that productive struggle, and then they succeed, ain't nothing better than that, guys. Nothing better than that. In fact, if you, again, watch the keynote, I talked specifically about a student who did that, Sam, and how I almost cried, how he became successful. Yes, the keynote, you gotta listen to it. There's the aha moment that we've lost in education because of AI, when students use AI inappropriately. All right, a couple of other things that I've been doing, and I'm not 100% satisfied. I was looking at it this morning in preparation for this podcast. And so one thing I started to do is I created an AI So let's say a kid doesn't finish the they finish the analog roots during class, and then they haven't had time for the Mastery Viva. So I thought, okay, I've got this cool AI tool. We use flintk12.com. It's a great tool. And I prompted it. I said, all right, here is the series of questions. Ask them if they're on 8.1 or 8.2, and then ask them a question. They can only verbally respond, and then that will count as their signature that they've had their conversation with me. Well, I was literally listening to those this morning. They can only talk, and so I can listen to the recordings. And one young lady, it was just a wonderful conversation she had with the AI, for lack of a better term. I mean, it produces text, and then she replies audibly. I want to do that because I didn't want them to copy and paste. But then I was listening to a couple other ones, and it was clear to me they were reading. The language was quite involved. It's not what a typical teenager would say. So what they did is they read the question. This is my guess. I'm going to actually have a physical conversation to say, all right, this needs to be your ideas. I don't want you reading something off of the internet. And not reading it off the internet, they were learning something, I guess, but I want them to be their thinking. They need to go through that productive struggle. And so that is, I'm still struggling with that. I would love to hear feedback. If you've got ideas, it's okay. And those students who do it well, it's awesome. And those who don't, it's not. So, yeah. So, logistics on how do you do this with super large classes? I was hoping that AI could help me out, and maybe I need to. I don't know. I'm brainstorming right now, even as I'm thinking this through. One thought I'm having right now is maybe I have them do some of the analog roots at home, knowing they will probably have other aids, but then the conversation has to happen in class, and they need to be ready and prepared for the conversation more right away. So I'm thinking maybe adjusting the homework to more than just information transfer, the introduction to the video, but they need to have done the first 2 questions or something like that. And even if they are copying it or whatever, then they need to then defend it and know they are prepared to defend it. So one thing I'm thinking I need to be is much more intentional about what I do in terms of preparing the students for the Mastery Viva. I know it's a powerful technique, and I know it's a really good idea, but I need to make sure that I'm preserving that productive struggle so that they go through that and they think it through and they deeply understand it. Too many times I think they're just trying to check the boxes, and checking the boxes isn't really learning, right? All right. So are you exhausted? Are you tired? Are you grading papers too long? And honestly, oftentimes the papers you're getting, aren't they? They're answered by AI, like even my students, right? And if they're just, I don't want to read AI stuff and or have AI grade the AI. That's a thing that's happening. So I think there's a lot of power in my cheesy little signature thing. And as I go around the room and sign that, and then when I get the papers, if I see the signature, I don't have to think about it because that's my signature. That means I've had that conversation. I've approved their thinking, if you will. And I think that's a super important point. And if we go back to the top of the podcast that I talked about with Dr. Eagleman, I'll call him out, Dr. Eagleman, who inappropriately thought that AI companion apps would be a good idea. It all connects because our goal is for our students to become people who thrive and who actually have human connection. And the power of a face-to-face conversation with a student. Too many times students, they spend their time, actually, they don't talk to each other oftentimes. They talk to screens, and they're not talking to humans. And by bringing this Mastery Viva into the classroom, I'm at least forcing them to have a human-to-human conversation. And they need that. They desperately need to know how to interact. And so many of the things I learned even this weekend at the conference, at the Teaching Generation AIZ conference in San Francisco, is that students have lost a lot of that ability because they spend so many hours in front of their screens, and when they do that, they lose the opportunity. It's a time cost. They're spending time here, and by definition, they're not spending time here. So they don't have this ability to talk face to face with another human. And if we bring that human-to-human conversation back in, it's going to make a huge difference. And I think that's super, super important in just their development. And honestly, in the world of AI, where in my pocket, I've got 1,000 IQ connection. Knowledge is cheap, but having the ability to think, having the ability to talk is going to be the coin of the new realm. this is a crazy exciting time for these young people. The world is such dramatically changing, and those who really figured this out are going to thrive, thrive, thrive. Those who let AI stupefy them, it's going to really be a difficult time. And we as educators, we must, it's a sacred calling. I talked about this in the keynote. It's a sacred calling that we have to focus in on our students to do the right thing, to I'm not sure I mean do the right thing, to have our students use AI in a way that protects that thinking. Remember, like I said earlier, the key to improving self-esteem is do something hard and achieve it. And we need to give them those opportunities. We almost need to force it, because human nature will be, I'll just take the easy way out. And we've got to force them to do the hard thing. And when they do the hard thing and they achieve, they feel good about themselves. I know for me, when I've done super hard things and you feel that level of accomplishment, it changes you, doesn't it? I remember, and I do crazy things, but years ago I got involved in what's called Ironman triathlons. And Ironman triathlons, you swim a long ways, you bike a long ways, and you run a long ways. And it ends in a marathon. The marathon is the end of the race. It's crazy. And walking, running-ish, across that finish line for that first Ironman was a spiritual experience, because I realized, and it wasn't just me feeling good about John, but it was much, much more. It was such a deep feeling of accomplishment that I could do really hard things. And we've got to get opportunity for kids to learn that they can do really hard things, and when they do, it'll change their life and it'll change their trajectory, and that's our goal. Anyways, I rambled there at the end. I hope that those words are meaningful to you. I encourage you to reach your students, and I hope this helps us to go deeper with the Mastery Viva. My big takeaway is that I need to make sure that I insist that it's their thinking. And when I'm having the AI ask them the questions at night, they're using AI to answer the questions, even verbally. But I'm going to be very specific with those individual students. I'm going to have conversations with them today or Monday. We're block scheduled, so I don't know when I'll see them. But I will have a conversation and say, honey, you read this, I know. Stop it. I need to hear your voice. Hey, this has been the Reach Every Student podcast. If you like this, push the subscribe button, share it with your friends. You know the deal. Hey, this is John Rubin, and go out and reach every student.